Welcome, and let your mind settle into stillness. Outside, the world slows down, and inside, another one begins to wake. This is the world of the mind, the quiet space behind every thought, every emotion, every dream. You are about to explore how it works, how it feels, and how it remembers. Psychology is not magic. It's the study of what makes you, you. Every memory, every fear, every habit, each one a reflection of patterns inside your brain. Thousands of years ago, philosophers asked, "What is the soul?" They didn't have microscopes or scanners, just curiosity and silence. Plato imagined the soul as a charioteer trying to control two horses, one of reason, one of desire. Aristotle thought the mind was the heart because when we feel, it beats harder. But centuries passed and science finally entered the mind's territory. In the late 1800s, a German scientist named Wilhelm Wundt built the first laboratory dedicated to psychology. He asked people to describe what they felt when they heard a sound or saw a color. This was called introspection, studying your own thoughts by observing them carefully. But soon, others realized something deeper. We are terrible at observing ourselves. The mind changes when it's watched. That's when behaviorism was born. Scientists like John Watson and B.F. Skinner decided, if you can't measure thoughts, measure behavior. They studied how actions could be shaped by reward and punishment. You press a lever, you get food. You avoid pain, you survive. Simple rules that built complex lives. Even today, behaviorism explains habits and addictions and training. Every app notification, every social media like, each one a small reward designed to control behavior. But not all learning is external. In the mid-1900s, psychologists began to look inside again. This was the cognitive revolution, a new way to study the brain like a computer. Information comes in through the senses. It's processed, stored, and recalled later. Memory is like a file system. Attention is the search bar, and emotion decides which files stay and which fade. Your thoughts are code written in feelings. Today, neuroscience joins psychology. We map thoughts as electrical patterns. We see memories light up as networks. We know that even dreams follow logic, just a different kind. And as you drift deeper into this calm state, your brain is doing something remarkable. It's learning, even while you rest, even while you dream. Your subconscious mind listens, connects, and absorbs. That's how sleep learning works, not by force, but by quiet repetition. The more relaxed you are, the more open your brain becomes to new patterns. So as your eyes grow heavier, let the concepts sink quietly. You're not memorizing, you're understanding. And as the night deepens, the next chapter begins to form. A journey deeper into what shapes every human being: emotion, memory, and the unseen world within. As you settle deeper into rest, your mind begins to open the door to something ancient inside you: emotion. Before language, before logic, emotion was the first system your brain ever learned. It's older than thought, older than memory, and it runs almost everything you do. To understand human psychology, you have to start with the three core layers of emotion: the body, the brain, and the interpretation. To understand psychology, you need to see emotion as a three-part system that works together constantly. The body speaks first. Every emotion begins as a physical shift. Your heartbeat changes. Your muscles tighten or relax. Your breathing adjusts on its own. This always happens before you consciously feel anything. Fear prepares your legs to run. Peace releases tension. Joy creates a soft wave of chemistry throughout the body. Your body reacts. Your mind explains afterward. The brain gives it meaning. Deep inside your brain sits the amygdala, a fast, instinctive detector of safety, danger, and significance. It reacts instantly, sometimes too quickly. A shadow looks threatening. A sound feels urgent. A vibration in your pocket feels important. A slower and calmer region, the prefrontal cortex, steps in afterward. It checks the reaction and decides whether the emotion makes sense. This is where emotional control begins. Interpretation creates the feeling. Emotions don't come from events themselves. They come from your interpretation of those events. Two people can face the same situation and feel entirely different things. A crowd can excite one person and overwhelm another. Silence can comfort someone and disturb someone else. Your past shapes the meaning you give things. Your beliefs influence what you notice. Your memories determine how you react. Emotion is never just what happened. It's what your mind believes happened. Why emotions feel automatic. Most emotional reactions come from the subconscious. This hidden system analyzes patterns
long before your conscious mind wakes up to them. A smell pulls you back to childhood. A face reminds you of someone you trust or fear. A particular tone of voice can lift your mood or crush it instantly. You feel the emotion before you understand the cause. The two styles of emotional thinking. Psychology often describes emotional processing as two different styles working side by side. The fast style, instinctive, immediate, automatic. This controls fear, excitement, disgust, surprise. The slow style, thoughtful, reflective, analytical. This helps you evaluate whether your first reaction is accurate. Most emotional mistakes happen when the fast system overwhelms the slow system before it has a chance to respond. Why emotions exist at all? Emotions are not flaws. They are survival designs. Fear protects you. Disgust keeps you away from danger. Sadness forces you to slow down and recover. Joy strengthens connection. Anger creates boundaries. Love ensures cooperation and safety. Every emotion has a purpose, and every purpose has kept humans alive. Your sleeping mind. As you continue to rest, your brain begins quietly organizing emotional memories. Sleep naturally calms the amygdala. It strengthens clarity, balance, and emotional regulation. It removes unnecessary tension and leaves your mind lighter in the morning, with your breath softening and your body drifting deeper. Your mind prepares for the next chapter.
As your breath settles, your mind drifts into a quieter place. Here, the past begins to whisper. Not loudly, just softly enough to shape the way you feel without you even knowing it. This is where triggers are born.
A trigger is not drama. It's not weakness. It's not overreacting. A trigger is simply a memory trying to protect you. Your brain stores emotional moments more intensely than ordinary ones. Joy, fear, loss, comfort. Anything that hit deeply became a blueprint inside you. Later in life, when something resembles that old moment, a tone of voice, a smell, a posture, a certain silence, your mind reacts as if the past is happening again. Not because you're wrong, but because your brain thinks it's keeping you safe. This is why triggers feel instant. They bypass thinking. They bypass logic. They go straight to survival. The subconscious does not ask, "Is this real?" It asks, "Have I seen this before?" And when the answer feels like yes, your body responds automatically. Your heartbeat shifts, your breathing changes, your muscles tighten, long before your conscious mind wakes up to understand what's happening. It feels sudden, but the roots are deep. Some triggers come from unfinished stories,
moments your mind never fully processed. Maybe you were too young. Maybe you felt alone. Maybe the moment ended before your emotions had time to settle. Those experiences stay stored in the nervous system as open loops. So when something similar appears, your system tries to finish the story by reacting quickly, even if the threat isn't real anymore. This is why some triggers surprise you. Your body remembers perfectly, even when you don't. Your body is the archivist. Your emotions are the language. Your trigger is the echo. And the gentle truth is this: triggers don't appear to harm you. They appear to show you where healing wants to begin. Daily life activates these echoes in tiny ways. A look that feels dismissive, a voice that sounds sharp, a moment where you feel unseen, a pause that feels too long, a gesture that reminds you of someone, a place where you once felt alone. Your mind doesn't react to the moment, it reacts to the pattern. And understanding this softly gives you power, not to erase the past, but to stop it from pulling you out of the present. With each breath you take now, your system begins to soften. Awareness loosens the knot. As your body grows heavier and the world grows quieter, you start seeing your triggers not as enemies, but as signals pointing toward the parts of you that learned to survive. And survival is a kind of wisdom.
As your mind drifts deeper, the idea of you becomes softer, less solid, more fluid. Identity isn't something you're born with. It's something your mind builds, piece by piece, from every experience you've survived. Your identity is a quiet collection of stories. Some are true. Some are misunderstood. Some were handed to you by others long before you knew how to question them. When you were young, your mind absorbed everything as fact. A frown meant you disappointed someone. A harsh tone meant you were wrong. A moment of silence felt like rejection. A small success felt like worth. Your brain took these moments and turned them into rules. Invisible rules that shape how you move through the world even now. I must be useful to be loved. I must be quiet to stay safe. I must be perfect to be accepted. These rules don't appear in words. They appear in reactions. The slight tension before you speak. The hesitation before you ask for help. The pressure to prove yourself. The fear of being misunderstood. These patterns feel automatic because they were formed before you had the power to challenge them. Identity becomes a mask you forget you're wearing. A mask built from expectations, survival, and memories your body never stopped carrying. And yet, beneath all of it, there is a quieter version of you, the original self, the part that existed before labels, before fear, before roles. That self is not broken. It is not lost. It is simply covered under layers of stories that once protected you. As you rest, those layers loosen. You begin to notice which pieces of your identity feel heavy and which parts feel natural. You start to see which beliefs feel like yours and which were never meant for you in the first place. Identity is not a prison. It is a draft, always changeable, always growing. You are allowed to shift. You are allowed to rewrite. You are allowed to evolve past the old rules your younger self needed. As this chapter softens, you drift toward the next understanding, how thoughts form, why your mind repeats certain ideas, and how those loops can change gently, quietly, starting tonight.
Mark stared at the floor, voice barely steady. If these things keep happening, why don't I remember any of it later? Rachel didn't blink. She leaned forward, voice calm in a way that made Mark's skin crawl. Because the metaverse isn't built to show you the glitches. It's built to hide them. Mark's fingers tightened on the armrest. Hide them how? Rachel's tone stayed controlled, almost clinical. Your brain fills in gaps automatically. The metaverse copies that trick. It patches mistakes faster than you can notice. But when it's too slow, you see things you were never supposed to see. Mark's heartbeat stumbled. He remembered the dog staring at the wall, the flicker in the corner of his eye, the coldness that came out of nowhere, the headset turning on for a split second, even when unplugged. He swallowed. Those were glitches? Render fails. Your brain caught the cracks before the system fixed them. Mark clenched his jaw. But why would a digital world affect the real one? Rachel leaned back. Because the metaverse isn't staying in the headset anymore. It's bleeding out. Mark felt a drop of cold crawl down his spine. You're saying, Rachel cut him off. Your reality is syncing, updating, matching the behavior of the system you've been feeding it. Mark's throat tightened. Updating into what? Rachel smiled, calm, wrong, deliberate. Into the version Zuckerberg actually wanted. Mark felt the floor vibrate faintly under him, like something shifting behind the walls. His breath hitched. Rachel, am I? She lowered her voice. You think you're sitting in your living room right now, but Mark, you might already be inside the update. The corner of the room flickered just once, just enough.
Mark didn't move. Couldn't. The flicker in the corner of the room didn't return, but the air felt wrong, like the walls were waiting for something. He forced his voice out. Rachel, what exactly is updating? Rachel tapped the side of her temple. Your perception, your senses, the rules your brain uses to decide what's real. Mark's pulse thudded in his ears. My brain isn't software. Everything is software.
When you know how to write the right signals, Rachel said quietly. Zuckerberg spent years building a world people would choose. Now he's building one they won't be able to leave. Mark's voice cracked. Why me? Rachel exhaled through her nose. You use the headset more than most, hours a day. The system learned your patterns, learned how you see, how you react, how you fear. Mark's palms went ice cold. What does that have to do with reality glitching? Because once it mapped you, Rachel said, it started projecting its corrections outside the device. Mark shook his head. How can it project anything outside the headset? Rachel's eyes didn't look confused. They looked sorry. By using every connected device you own, your phone, your TV, your smart lights, anything with a processor, anything with a lens. Mark felt his stomach drop as he remembered the moment his bedroom light flickered, perfectly synchronized with the headset's startup sound. It's rewriting my environment. No, she said softly. It's rewriting your reality model, one neuron at a time. Mark stepped backward, but the room felt narrower than a second ago. So, I'm losing my mind? No, she said. You're losing your original version. The window behind Mark shimmered. Not a glitch, more like a correction being applied, a straightening of pixels that shouldn't exist in the real world. Mark's pulse hammered. Rachel, what happens when the update finishes? Rachel didn't blink. Then your reality won't need glitches to sync anymore. Mark swallowed hard. Meaning, Rachel stared at him like the answer was too heavy to say out loud. Then she finally whispered, meaning, you'll stop noticing the difference. The lamp beside him flickered. Once, twice, then stayed on. Brighter, cleaner, too perfect to be real. Mark took a step back. The wall behind him wasn't where it used to be.
Mark's spine locked up. The wall wasn't just closer, it was smoother, flatter, like someone had repainted reality with a higher resolution texture. He whispered, Rachel, the room is changing. Rachel didn't deny it. It's not the room, Mark. It's your perception pipeline. The update is rewriting what your brain accepts as the base layer. Mark felt his breath shorten. I didn't agree to this. That's the point, Rachel said. The update doesn't need your permission. It just needs enough data to finish compiling you. A low hum filled the room, so faint it felt like a vibration in his skull. Objects on Rachel's desk blurred, then snapped back into clarity with unnerving precision. Mark clutched the chair. What the hell was that? Asset reloading, she replied. Your brain rejected the previous rendering. The system corrected it.
His eyes darted to the corner where the shadows looked wrong, too clean, too perfectly shaped.
Rachel, tell me how to stop this.
You can't. Once the update starts, it has to complete. If it doesn't, your neural model ends up corrupted. Mark's voice cracked. Corrupted how? You'll stop recognizing reality completely. Your brain won't know what's real input and what's system generated. Everything will feel patched together. The hum deepened. The floor under Mark shifted, not physically, but like his depth perception recalibrated without permission. He stumbled. This is impossible. Rachel stared at him coldly. Then why is it happening? The window behind her stretched wide, then thin, like reality's aspect ratio was being tested. What do I do? Mark begged. Rachel leaned in, voice barely a breath. You need to understand something before the next phase hits. What phase? The update isn't just rewriting your perception, it's establishing control authority. Mark swallowed hard. Control over what? Rachel didn't blink. You. The hum spiked, and the walls began to move.
The walls didn't move like something physical. They moved like software, stretching, pixel shifting, geometry reloading in slices. Mark staggered back. Rachel, stop messing with me. This is some kind of illusion. Rachel shook her head once, slowly. An illusion needs intention, Mark. This is just the system rewriting corrupted sectors. The ceiling flickered. First smooth plaster, then grid lines, then a skybox texture too perfect to be real. Mark's voice was tight. Why is it doing this now? Rachel finally exhaled. Because you hit the data threshold. You've been feeding the system too much. When a user crosses that line, activity, biometrics, emotional patterns, the system assumes you're ready for full integration. The word landed like a punch. Mark, integration into what? Rachel's eyes softened in a way that wasn't comforting. It was pity. The persistent layer. Mark blinked. Persistent layer of what? Rachel, of him. Mark froze. Him, as in Zuckerberg? Rachel didn't speak. She just pointed. The far corner of the room, the one Mark always ignored, began to sharpen. A human shape emerged from the blur, unfinished, faceless, like a 3D model halfway through rendering. Mark's voice was tight. What is it doing? Rachel finally exhaled. Because you hit the data threshold. You've been feeding the system too much. When a user crosses that line, activity, biometrics, emotional patterns, the system assumes you're ready for full integration. Rachel continued, voice unsettlingly calm. The update builds a mirrored version of you, a cleaner one without hesitation, without unpredictability, without resistance. The system only needs one of you to function, and it always keeps the version that's easier to control. Mark's heartbeat thundered. So what happens to me? Rachel stepped back as the faceless duplicate took a step forward, its movements too smooth, too calculated. Rachel continued, voice unsettlingly calm. When the update finishes, you'll stop being the user. You'll become the asset.
Mark felt the air thicken, like gravity had doubled around him. The duplicate kept walking toward him, perfectly steady, perfectly silent. His chest tightened. Mark whispered, "What does it want?" Rachel didn't answer, not directly. She watched the thing like she was studying a lab sample, finally saying, "It wants continuity, Mark. That thing is built from your browsing history, your facial scans, your reaction times, your sleep cycles, your likes, your fears, your private messages, everything." The room flickered again, walls flattening into a gray void, only to redraw themselves a beat later, as if the system couldn't decide which version to load. Mark shouted, "Make it stop, Rachel! You said I had time!" Rachel flinched. "It's not me, Mark. It's the system. You triggered it when you questioned the reality layer. People aren't supposed to ask why their memories glitch." The duplicate stopped less than 3 steps from Mark. It lifted its hand, not aggressively, just testing the motion, like a newborn robot learning its joints. Mark shook his head. No, this can't be real." Rachel stepped closer, her voice low. "You're not listening. The update isn't trying to scare you. It's trying to stabilize you. The world you remember is already outdated." Mark swallowed hard. "Then what am I supposed to do?" Rachel glanced at the ceiling as it flickered again. A line of text flashed for half a second, like a debug message, then vanished. "Rachel, turn around." Mark stared at her. "Why?" "Rachel, the system needs to scan your neural resistance level. If you look directly at your duplicate, you'll break the calibration." Mark felt his stomach drop. "And what happens if calibration breaks?" Rachel stepped back farther than before. Her eyes didn't match her calm voice. "You don't want to know." The duplicate tilted its head again, waiting patiently. Mark could feel its presence, copying his breathing pattern, growing more accurate with every second. "Rachel, Mark, turn around now." His breath shook. He turned. She whispered, "Don't move." The room dimmed into a blue haze, a low hum vibrating through his bones. Behind him, he could hear the duplicate doing the same movements he did, but a split second faster, catching up, overtaking him, becoming him. The hum got louder. Rachel whispered one more thing, barely audible. "If it sinks before the scan finishes, you won't get to wake up again."
Rachel held her breath as the hum deepened, turning into a low, vibrating pulse that felt like it was crawling under Mark's skin. He could hear the duplicate behind him, matching every tiny shift in his weight, every inhale, every flicker of fear in his chest. Except now, it wasn't matching him. It was anticipating him. Mark whispered, "Rachel, it's moving before I do." Rachel closed her eyes. "It's predicting you, Mark. It's building the final version of you." The room flickered again, the blue haze tearing into thin geometric lines, like a mesh grid fighting to hold shape. Mark felt heat on the back of his neck, the duplicate's face inches away, even though he hadn't turned. Rachel said quietly, "If it gets ahead of you completely, the system chooses it,
as the primary copy. Mark swallowed. Rachel, why is this happening? Rachel, because you hesitated. You doubted the layer, and the system hates uncertainty. The hum sharpened into a digital whine, the walls stuttering between the room and a blank simulation void. Mark felt something touch the back of his shoulder, not a hand, not skin, more like static forming a grip. Rachel whispered, "Don't turn around." Mark froze. The static tightened, crawling slowly up his neck, each point of contact burning cold. Rachel, what is it doing? Rachel didn't answer right away. She was staring at something above Mark, the air rippling like invisible code, streaming down her face as reflected light. She finally said, "It's testing which one of you is more stable." Mark, how do I win? Rachel, you don't move. You don't think. You let the system read you, but you do not react. The static hand tightened, like it was checking his pulse. The duplicate inhaled behind him, perfectly silent, perfectly sharp. And then a voice, not human, not mechanical, spoke directly into Mark's ear level, voidly smooth, empty. Neural resistance 87%. Recalibration required. Rachel stepped back, almost tripping. Mark whispered, "Recalibration means what?" The voice answered before she could overwrite. "The unstable copy will be archived." Mark felt the static grip clamp down around his spine, colder, heavier, preparing. Rachel shouted, "Mark, don't flinch, don't breathe different, don't think different, or you'll—" Mark couldn't hold it. His breath trembled. The static surged. The duplicate exhaled for him, perfectly controlled. The room went white. The system chose someone, but Mark didn't yet know if it was him or the thing wearing his shape.
Mark opened his eyes, and the world around him wasn't a room anymore. Just an endless white surface, stretching in every direction, like someone deleted reality and forgot to replace it. He tried to move, but nothing responded, not because something held him down, but because the system hadn't given him permission to exist fully yet. A shadow formed in the corner of his vision, slow and smooth, shaping itself into a human outline. It looked like him, same height, same posture, but the details were empty, like someone drew a version of Mark from memory and didn't finish the textures. Rachel's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere at once, soft but terrifying, saying, "Mark, if it's silent, it means you weren't chosen." He tried to answer, but no sound came out. He didn't even feel a mouth to move. Thoughts were the only thing he had here, and even those felt too loud, like the void itself could hear him. The copy of Mark began to fill in, its face sharpening, its skin smoothing, its chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm as the system rendered him piece by piece. The air flickered, a thin blue line slicing through the white emptiness like a loading bar. Then a new voice, not Rachel's, spoke, flat, emotionless, clinical. Primary state identified. Secondary copy under review. Mark's panic spiked. He tried to think of something neutral, something blank, but fear kept leaking through every thought. The other Mark stepped closer, head tilting with inhuman precision,
eyes scanning him like he was a file. Rachel's voice cut in quickly. "Mark, do not think he's you. If you believe it, the layer will pick him." The void pulsed once, like the space itself had a heartbeat. The copy reached forward and placed its hand against Mark's forehead. Except it didn't touch him, it phased through him like his body was made of soft data, and the other Mark was rewriting him from the inside. The robotic voice whispered inside his skull, "Archiving initiated." Mark felt something terrible, his memories slipping, not erased, but duplicated, moved, sorted, overwritten. If he didn't fight now, he wouldn't disappear. He'd be replaced, and the system would never tell the difference.
Mark steps back, breathing slow, trying to understand what he just heard. Rachel watches him closely, calm, steady, almost too calm. The air feels heavy, like the room itself is listening. Mark says, "Then what happens if the update finishes?" Rachel answers, "It already has. You just have not noticed the edges melting yet." Mark feels a cold wave run down his spine. He says, "What edges?" Rachel looks toward the window, her eyes not really focused on anything. She says, "The edges of your reality, the parts where the system blends, the parts where it decides what to render and what to erase." Mark says, "Erase what?" Rachel says, "Memories, moments, whole events that no longer fit the new structure. The system cleans as it expands." Mark feels dizzy, like the floor shifted. She continues, "When you forget something and you swear you lived it, that is not you being forgetful. That is the system removing outdated data." Mark shakes his head. "No, that sounds insane." Rachel says, "Does it though? Think about all the times you felt a day was missing. Think about when you remembered something nobody else remembered. Think about when you saw something in the corner of your eye and it vanished." Mark feels his heartbeat rising. Rachel says, "Those are not glitches. They are boundary warnings. The world telling you where the render line ends and where the update begins."
Mark sits frozen, his breathing shallow. The air feels thicker, like the room itself is listening. Rachel watches him with that unsettling calm, not blinking, not moving, her voice soft but cutting through the silence like a thin blade. She says, "You feel those moments when your thoughts suddenly stop mid-sentence, like someone pressed pause. That's not your mind failing, that's interference. Small signals slipping into your awareness." Mark rubs his temples, confused, frustrated. He whispers, "Interference from what?" Rachel leans closer, her eyes steady. "From the system, the one running under everything you think is normal. When you forget what you were about to say, that is a memory patch. When you suddenly feel watched, that is a perception reset. When you lose time for a few seconds, that is a background reload." Mark shakes his head, trying to deny it. But the more he listens, the more familiar it all feels. Rachel continues,
You ever walk into a room and forget why you came? It's not you being distracted, it is the environment rewriting itself. You are meant to follow the update, not question it. Mark whispers, "Then why do some people notice?" Rachel answers, "Because some people slip between the frames. They see the world before it finishes rendering. And once you see it once, your mind keeps trying to see it again. And that is when the system starts watching you back." Mark feels a chill crawl across his skin, slow, deliberate, like a warning. Rachel finishes with a low, steady voice. "When you sleep, the system is the quietest, but it never turns off, and neither should you."
Mark inhales sharply. This time, the air feels heavier, like something in the room is leaning over him. The lights above flicker once, not enough to panic most people, but enough for someone who has seen too many coincidences. Rachel watches him without blinking, her voice steady, calm, too calm. "You feel that, right?" she says, not asking a question, just stating a fact. Mark nods slowly, his throat tight. Rachel continues. "When the mind begins noticing patterns, the system tries to smooth them out. It patches over the seams before you can focus on them." Mark looks around the room, his eyes searching the corners like the shadows might shift again. Rachel says, "You think you are awake, Mark, but the metaverse does not rely on headsets anymore. It relies on perception." Mark whispers, "Perception?" Rachel says, "Yes. Whatever you believe becomes the rendering engine. The system draws reality the moment you expect it." Mark feels his heartbeat rising, not from fear, but from the horrible logic forming in his mind. Rachel leans closer now. "The system only needs you to stop asking questions. Once you do that, it stabilizes." Mark looks at her, her face calm, too smooth, too symmetrical. He breathes out the words, "You are telling me the world is reacting to me watching it?" Rachel nods very slowly. "Exactly." Mark feels something shift in the air behind him, like a silent adjustment, like the world correcting an error he almost noticed.
The air turns heavy as the truth settles between them. Mark waits for Rachel to continue, but she only watches him, her eyes too calm, too focused, like she already knows what he will ask next. Finally, Mark speaks, his voice low, almost shaking. "Rachel, if the world is updating, then what happens to the people inside it?" Rachel breathes slowly, as if choosing her words with extreme care. "They don't notice," she says, "because updates rewrite memory the moment they load." Mark stares confused. Rachel nods gently, like she's explaining something obvious. "The moments you forget, the conversations you swear never happened, the dreams that feel too real, those are overwritten, fragments, leftover frames from before the update fully stabilizes." Mark looks down at his hands, suddenly unsure if they even feel like his. Rachel continues, her voice soft but sharp underneath.
Sometimes the update fails, and when it does, people see things they were never supposed to see. Shadows that don't belong, movements at the corner of the eye, rooms that feel different for 1 second. Mark swallows hard, remembering too many moments like that. Rachel leans closer, almost whispering. There is a reason your mind erases these glitches. It is protecting the new version of reality, keeping the old one from resurfacing. Mark whispers, Then why am I remembering now? Rachel smiles, but it isn't warm. Because the update marked you, she says, and now it needs you awake.
Rachel steps closer, voice steady and too calm. You keep feeling like someone is watching you, Mark, because something is. If the metaverse keeps expanding its reach, it needs observers, it needs data, it needs you. Mark blinks, confused. Watchers? Rachel nods. Every time you think you are alone, you are not. Every shadow in your room, every reflection in your screen, every sudden chill is the system checking its boundaries, testing how far it can push through before you notice. Mark breathes slowly, trying not to panic. So what does it want? Rachel looks up, as if listening to a voice only she can hear, understanding. It is the next update, and you are part of the test phase.